To thank you for making Subway footlongs famous, now enjoy any regular footlong as a $5 footlong. That's right, any, including your favorites, like the savory chicken and bacon ranch. Any Subway regular footlong is just $5. Hurry in.
The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
This is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
it might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't
The
care.
BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now,
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Fellow ESPN columnist Rick Reilly. What's happening?
I'm fine. How's it going there?
It's going good. We were just, before we went on, we were talking about this whole ISDN line, all the being able to do radio from your house. Did you ever think you'd be able to do a radio show from your house?
Yeah, about 20 years ago I started figuring it out, but my thing is I always sound like I'm calling from one of those Progresso soup phones
Yeah.
with the string. I just sound terrible, whereas you sound like, you're sitting next to Dan Rather in the CBS control room or something.
I know. We got to get you an ISDN line. That's the only way my voice can sound half decent on the radio.
I know. I'm half Mennonite. I'm just, I'm useless.
Let's talk about Tiger. You and I are diametrical opposites on the speech. I think I used that phrase correctly.
But my thing with you is, like, was your heart removed at some point in your life? I mean, this guy is sitting there being flayed open like Prometheus on the rocks. People are just gnawing at his liver, and you're like, I don't think he was funny enough. I don't think he ad-libbed enough.
I didn't want him to be funny. Well, here's my question. What was the purpose?
He should have been Tom Hanks up there or something. The guy is just getting murdered around the world. I think people totally underestimate how much he's hurting. I mean, I always think, what's the worst day I've had in this job where I just get, how there's days when you just get thrown in the tumble dry cycle of life and everybody's taking shots at you,
Yeah.
Who knows what I did? I probably did something stupid or whatever. Multiply that by 10,000. I mean, people in Mongolia are laughing at this guy, and he's human. He's feeling it, and he looked so tired to me. He looked scared. He looked washed out, exhausted. So I just didn't care that he wasn't up there being, a great off-the-cuff, ad-lib, from-the-heart speaker. He's just trying to get it out.
I concede all of those points, but that raises the question, why do the speech then? What did he gain from it?
To me, it was totally step 9. He's obviously going through a 12-step process. Step 9, make public amends to the people you've harmed. And he came out of rehab to do this speech, and he had to do it. He apologized to everybody under the sun. He apologized to everybody but you and me. So he had to do it in front of a television camera. I admit it looked like.
But why though? Why did he have to? That's what I don't get. Why not just release a public statement and be done with it? He's been in hiding for 3 months.
Because I think as part of your therapy, you have to get up and look people in the eye, and if that involves a camera, it does. And he had to apologize to the students at his school, to the people on his scholarship, to his sponsors, to his colleagues on tour, to friends, family. I mean, people always say, well, what does he owe? What apology does he owe me? Well, he thinks he owes everybody an apology, and I thought it was for him. And mind you, for him, I thought it was like swallowing jagged glass.
Right.
I think it came out really hard, but he did it, and it was a big step in his life.
But if you're going to do it, why not just do it quickly? Why not just say, hey, tomorrow at 8 I'm going to give this speech? And why have the buildup of a solid week? Why create the expectation that, people are going to actually learn answers from this speech, and instead we basically learn nothing? I don't care. Whatever. I don't care about what his character is or whether he's going to rebuild his life. I never believed in him as a person because I didn't have an opinion. I just liked watching him play golf. So I watched that press conference just wondering, all right, well, when are you going to come back? And we didn't learn that answer, really. It was basically, as you said, a roll call of people that he felt bad for hurting their feeling or whatever. But ultimately, we didn't learn that much. And then when you throw in, like, the orchestrated, the photos, just the photographers randomly catching him out, to me, it just seemed totally orchestrated.
Well, I disagree. I think there had to be some lead time because he has to get the world to be ready for this. He's got to set up a room with a camera, even though it looked like some kind of funeral home. He had to get people there. He had to let the world know it was happening. I mean, I think you were looking at your expectations were out of sorts with what reality was. I don't think he knows when he's going to come back. I tell people this every day. He doesn't know when he's going to come back. He's in the fight for his kids. He doesn't want to get divorced and have his kids move to Sweden.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to be the laughing stock. He wants to prove to people he's still a good guy. So his number one thing is, I need to save my marriage. So, I went through a divorce. It's hard. You're trying to save it. I personally don't think it's savable, but the last thing he thinks is, let's see, if I play Tavistock, then Bay Hill, then I can play Augusta. The guy hasn't even practiced in 4 months. I don't know how anybody thinks golf is anywhere near the top 10 on his priority list.
So you're saying that I approached everything the wrong way, that it wasn't a speech. It was just a really awkward public statement.
It's all your fault.
Well, no.
I mean, I get that it was awkward. I just think it wasn't about, hey, I'm going to tell the world when I'm coming back. It was this is part of my rehab. This is step 9, and I need to say, look, I'm so sorry. And even though he did it just really awkwardly, for him, someone that's been on guard since he was 4 years old, to come forward, even if it was printed on a paper and say, I failed, I cheated, I was a fool. This guy won't even, you can't beat him in anything. If you beat him in ping pong, he wants to play the sixth match, video game, whatever. He's just the most competitive guy I've ever met, stubborn, willful, at times arrogant. To get up there and just open himself up as a fool in front of the world, I thought it was, I really couldn't believe those words were coming out of his mouth.
Okay, but he has this whole team of people that work for him. And this is ostensibly a speech. He's made a big deal about, on Friday at 11 o'clock, I am going to give a speech in front of these people, and you get to finally see me and hear me say these words. Then why not actually make the speech like a little heartfelt, or at least like craft it in a way that he's going to win me over a little bit, because obviously that was one of his intentions, to be like, I've lost trust in the people who watch me play golf, so how can I win that trust back? Why? I mean, that if you gave that speech in high school as a sophomore, the teacher would be like, well, you should have done this, you should have done that, you should have done this.
Right, C-.
What's wrong with trying to make it a good speech? Why is that such an obstacle?
Well, I totally agree. If you're saying he's got some people who are not giving him good advice,
yes,
I totally
that's what
agree
I think.
with you. I mean, how? Name one good thing they've advised him in this. He let this thing simmer for 3 months. I think you made the exact same point in one of your columns, so that in the vacuum, every stupid email you got, every fake picture, every text you heard, you're like, well, I don't know, he's not saying anything. Maybe there's something to this. Whereas David Letterman comes out before the story even hits, looks right into the camera and says, I was an idiot, I had sex, whatever. And the thing is done in 3 days. And now Letterman, 3 months later, gets up and goes, well, Tiger Woods is going to make a big statement tomorrow, apology. He says, I think it's good to get on this before it becomes a big story.
Right.
The advice he has gotten on this has got to go down in the how not to handbook of public relations, because it's been terrible. So I agree. Whoever crafted the speech, to me, it was kind of awkwardly written and a little wooden, and it makes me think that he wrote a bunch of it.
You know what? I feel the same way, because after I wrote about the speech, a couple people made the point to me that they had heard from reliable people that he wrote the speech and he wouldn't be talked out of it and he wanted it to be in his words. Now, at that point...
Hello, that's him.
Yeah, if I'm advising him, I'm like, I'm throwing my body in front of that. I'm going to be like, look, Tiger, it's admirable you want to write your own words, but, you're not a writer and you're not an orator. Let us help you with this. Let us craft something that will swing people back in your favor.
This is a guy that won't even let anyone read his putts. I mean, Stevie Williams is one of the best green readers out there, and he gets called over maybe once a week to look at a putt. He doesn't want help. I must have asked him 50 times for my book, Who's Your Caddy? Hey, let me just caddy for you 9 holes, 1 hole, a round of putt-putt. And he's like, nah, I don't need any help.
Yeah.
I mean, he's really stubborn that way. So I totally agree with you that whoever let him get up there with that speech ought to be fired. But I have said now for 3 months that he needs to fire his staff.
Yeah.
Because no wife can ever trust his staff. I think you said it in your column today, and I've been saying it for a long time. Well, wait a minute, who are you with? Well, wait a minute, isn't that the guy, according to TMZ, that got Rachel Yucatel on a plane to Australia? Wait a minute, isn't that your leader of your design group who set up the hotel in Vegas? Wait a minute, you're telling me Stevie Williams and Mark Steinberg didn't know about these over 10 affairs, different girls you had, and God knows how many there really were. If I'm the wife, I'm like, you need all new people.
Right. Well, the sad part about that statement is that I think these guys just assumed he wasn't doing anything different than a lot of athletes do. It's like, oh, yeah, Tiger's got some on the side. They deal with that stuff all the time. And I think that's been the most interesting thing in these last 3 months is that, general America has kind of realized that this really wasn't a total anomaly. This is this is a whole other world that's kind of kept secret to us, this whole celebrity debauchery world that, it's out there and it happens.
Well, I disagree, though. I disagree because what you're saying to me is this happens all over the tour. And I don't know that to be true. And this
I don't know about the tour,
guys were pissed. What's that?
I don't know the tour. I'm saying in general, big athletes or, it's just easy for them and they don't have to answer to anybody and there are no repercussions for their actions. And, it's something
there's a reason Jordan and Barkley weren't there. They represent exactly what he's trying to go away from. There's a reason those guys haven't been able to get through to him. He's trying to change.
Yeah.
Now, since all this, I've read a bunch about sex therapy, and if you agree that sex can be an addiction, it's very hard for people to change an obsession. If he's really, truly obsessed by sex, one rehab probably is not going to do it. But going back to that, I just think you can't carry, if you're trying to change your life, you can't keep Stevie and Steinberg and those guys around. So that's one reason to fire them. But far better is the guys whose hand let him bulldog his way into mistake after mistake in this.
Yeah. Well, even when you look at the initial accident and how it really wasn't handled for about 13 hours. And it's kind of amazing that it didn't get out for 13 hours when you think about it. You have this guy who's, a top 5 famous athlete in the world right now, one of the greatest athletes of our generation, if not the, and he's lying without shoes on a sidewalk, passed out next to this car with windshield smashed, and that doesn't get out for 13 hours?
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And this is why people say, well, why do you need answers from Tiger Woods? I'll tell you why. Because the police were called. Because there's a suggestion down in Florida that the Florida Highway Patrol covered some of this stuff up. That there's this other witness who said that Tiger was really banged up and smashed up in the face because his wife went into the house and brought back 2 bottles of prescription drugs, one Vicodin, one Ambien, and saying this is what he was on because they couldn't wake him up after a car crash. And there's all kinds of legal and police matter questions I'd like to ask. That's why, I thought the speech, I thought it was good for him, but it's just one tiny step. He still has to go in front of somebody and answer some questions. He's still got to win back women in this country who are the most disgusted. You talk about your wife. My wife is the same. After the speech, I said, I was pretty impressed. What'd you think? And she goes, words, anybody can say anything. For
True.
women, it's, let's see how you behave over the next 5 years. And that's the cross he has to carry now in his house.
Yeah, and so we basically we agree and disagree on the speech. We agree that it wasn't a good speech. You think that it was ultimately, you respect him that he went up and he poured his soul out and did the whole thing. I personally think that if you're going to do that, get your money's worth out of it. And, actually try to win people over. I don't feel like from that standpoint he succeeded. And I didn't get any of the answers that I wasn't even sure if I cared about in the first place about everything that happened. We still don't know. I'm in the dark.
How many answers did you think you'd get in a room full of 50-year-old white people and 6 reporters who weren't allowed to ask a question? How many answers were you expecting? So my point is, okay, yes, for Barack Obama, that is a D- speech.
Oh, that's an F- for Barack.
That's an A-.
I'm going to give it a C-. We'll agree to disagree. The part I don't get, and maybe you've spent much more time with them than I have, is usually in these types of situations they sit down with Diane Sawyer. They have that with the camera with the Vaseline on it, and it's the close-ups, and the guy looks upset, and you feel bad for him, and it's over. Is Tiger? Are they? It seems like they're shielding him from that. Is he capable of interacting in a format like that?
Yeah, he sat down with Oprah before. He wasn't good. He was a little wooden. He'd be even more wooden now, but he should definitely do it. He should definitely do Oprah. She even said she was on a long vacation when all this happened, and she came out and said, I would come back from vacation to do this. She's the perfect person for him to do it. She's not going to just totally puffball him because she's got women to answer to. I mean, I was on that show. It's 99% women in that audience, so they're going to want some real, some flash out of this deal. So I definitely think he still needs to do it. But I think the mistake you're making is that you think they're guiding him. He doesn't. He runs everything. He makes every decision.
Yeah.
He can't be talked into anything. He's the most stubborn guy. He's like, for instance, he's cheap. He's the cheapest guy you've ever come across.
I know. That finally came out in this whole thing. Yeah.
I've been saying this in the beginning. What has brought Tiger Woods down is not so much the morality, because there's a lot of immoral athletes out there. It's because he's so damn cheap. So he's dating waitresses, and 2 years later, they're still waitresses.
Yeah.
Any other athlete worth almost $1 billion puts them up in an apartment, tells them to quit their job, and sends them, $200,000 a year, so that when this kind of stuff happens, they don't sell their life-murdering voicemail to National Enquirer, so that they don't sell their sextings to TMZ. They all sold them for $50,000, $100,000. If he hadn't been so cheap, and this is not a comment on morality because I think it was wrong, but what really brought him down was his own cheapness. But you can't talk him out of being cheap. Barkley's talked about this. Man, I try to get him to tip. He won't tip. Jordan's like, I know valets at country clubs all over. So I always go, so did Tiger tip you? No, I stood between him and the car door until he finally gave me a frickin' tip.
Oh, listen, from 2000, I'm a big Vegas guy. And we always talk to the blackjack dealers or the craps dealers or whoever. And you always try and, it's boring. You're standing there 4 hours trying to talk about stuff. And you're like, all right, so who are some of the best celebrity tippers? And you say, who are the worst? Tiger was always mentioned. He was always within one of the first 3 people that they mentioned. Oh, he's so freaking cheap. He won $150,000 in craps here, and he left us, a $500 chip. There's so much bitterness. This was in 2000. But
I'm surprised he did that.
Yeah. So you're saying frugality. You're saying the frugality was part of his downfall.
I'm saying it's most of his downfall. I mean, obviously, you don't cheat on your wife. That's wrong. But what got him caught was that he was cheap. The girl went on the Today Show and said, I asked him for $200. I was in a real fix. He wouldn't give it to me. Another girl came out and said, whatever money I had when I started this relationship is about what I had when I left. Financially, because she was really upset. People thought she was some kind of gold digger. This was the absolute non-gold diggingest guy you could ever have. Yeah. One time I went on this, my buddies and I, we rented the Snowcat, which you do up here in Colorado, and you get like 8 guys, 9 guys, and the snowcat takes you up into this backcountry, and you ski, and the snowcat picks you up at the bottom. And so we're like, so I said something like, "Hey, is it true Tiger rented this thing?" He goes, "Tiger and a couple of his buddies rented us about a month ago." And I'm like, "How much did he leave you?" And they said, "Nothing." I said, "Let's stiff the driver and the guide." And we're giving them, $250, $300 each.
I blame Earl for that. You learned that from your dad. The dad is responsible for making sure the son's tip. My little son is going to be a big tipper. Yeah, you got to bang it out early. You got to bang it into their heads. So
the irony of this is there's a great story about Mickelson at Riviera, and he tips the guy $100. The guy brings him his car. Here's $100, and he's a little bit, Phil. He kind of likes the fact that he's a big tipper, and the kid goes, "Oh my gosh, thank you, Mr. Mickelson." And Phil goes, "Anybody ever give you $100 before?" And the kid goes, "Well, yeah." And Phil goes, "Really? Who?" And the kid goes, "You, last year."
Ah. Yeah, see, I like Phil Mickelson. I guess Antoine Walker would be the opposite side of the spectrum because he tipped so much that he no longer has money. And he made $100 million, and now he's bankrupt. So I guess you could swing it too far the other way.
You can overdo it. That's right. Remember when Elvis was going around giving away Cadillacs?
Oh, yeah.
Before your time.
Yeah, you got to be careful. So I wrote this column yesterday about that I think this comeback for him is going to be so much tougher than people realize. It's not a case of him just, all right, he's going to go out there and he's going to be mad, he's going to kick ass. Like, there are a lot of variables here, including, as you mentioned before, he's trying to win his family back, which, just think if you have your average job that you've been doing, however many hours a week, and you're good at it, you're in a groove, and you've basically been ignoring your family, and now all of a sudden your family becomes your top priority. Isn't that going to affect your job?
I mean, I totally think it is. It's going to affect practice time. Usually he might spend on a day off 6-7 hours at the range. Well, maybe he's trying to spend more time with Elin, so maybe he goes home after 4. Personally, I think he'll be as great as ever. I personally still think he'll fly by Nicklaus, but it won't be anytime soon. But the one thing I disagreed in your column today was that, you've compared boxing with golf, but there are no more opposite crowds, no, maybe not, than boxing and golf. In golf, they're the most polite people. I'm going to say, and I've been trying to do the math, but there's never any heckling in golf unless you're in New York or maybe Phoenix when everybody's drunk. But other than that, nobody heckles. Now you're going to say, well, there's going to be 2 or 3 people that are going to come out just to get to Tiger. But there's this ethic in golf crowds. If somebody yells something negative, they're all going to call security, and they're going to yank that guy out of the tournament, even though it's totally not fair. And you can heckle in every other sport, but in golf, they will pull that guy, and they'll pull him fast. So I honestly don't think he'll get much heckling beyond, say the first couple tournaments. I don't think there'll be any at Augusta. I mean, you can't even run at Augusta.
You can't blink at Augusta.
You can't do crap at Augusta. So I think the whole is he going to be bothered by fans isn't going to happen. I think the whole comeback for him to put this whole thing to rest, or at least Marv Albert rest, where no one brings it up much anymore except once a month or something, is play a regular tournament. You don't have to win, just play. Play a major, you don't have to win. Then the third step, win a regular tournament, and the fourth step, win a major. And when he's back to winning a major, then this will no longer be the huge story.
I was surprised when, I was wondering, 34 years old, what the history was with other great golfers. And obviously Tiger is, I think, the best golfer ever, so it's tough to compare him to other people. But, 34 does seem to be like some sort of a cutoff point to some degree. And a lot of guys it never happened for them after they hit their mid-30s. There's been a couple. Nicklaus was obviously kept it going until he hit 40. Greg Norman kind of peaked in his late 30s. Tom Kite was better after 34 for some reason. But for the most part, it does seem like it could go either way. Do you think we've seen his best golf ever already?
No, I think he has 13 years. I give him until he's 46. That's when Nicklaus won his last major, the Masters. I think in 13 years, all he's got to win is 5 to get by Nicklaus. He can do that left-handed.
Yeah.
He's the best shape athlete. There was a little poll going around amongst the caddies who in a cage fight would end up winning, and they all picked Tiger.
Really?
He's just a beast. Yeah, he's a beast. He's the strongest per pound. He's the meanest. So his physicality is going to keep him going very strong till 46, 48. I mean, Julius Boros won at 51. But the problem is that knee. He's now had 4 operations on one knee. Yep. And I was talking to an orthopedist, and they said that knee is definitely going to get some sort of form of arthritis.
If it doesn't have it already.
Yeah, and this doctor said there's no way a knee that's had 4 operations is not going to have some kind of arthritis. So, and I keep saying this, I'm like, you all think that, he's just, there's no chance that he's not going to pass Nicklaus, but what if that knee finally just completely goes out? He can get a new knee, and I suppose he can win a couple majors on a fake knee. I don't know if a major's ever been won with a fake body part in there, but he could do it. I still think he'll pass Nicklaus, but I don't think it's because his skills will go down. I think if he doesn't do it, I think it will only be because of the knee, not emotion, not the wife, not the coming divorce, not age, nothing like that. I just think it's that knee.
I don't think it's a layup. And, I think the knee is a huge thing that never, ever, ever gets mentioned. This guy had total reconstructive surgery on his knee. And this is, I guess you could say like in basketball or whatever, I guess, just in golf, it's like you're just pushing off the same parts of the same of your same parts of your same 2 legs time after time after time after time after time. It's like pressure over time, and he's already had some structural failure. So that makes me think.
But he torques so hard on that knee. He just spins so hard on it. I can remember standing there with Brad Paxton once, watching him hit, and he's like, that knee's never going to last. And so after the operation, he said that he had altered the swing to take pressure off the knee. There wasn't quite so much torque. But I've looked at it over and over, and it looks to me like there's as much torque as ever. But anyway, he said he's trying to have less torque on the knee. I will say one thing that I thought was wrong in your column, not to keep pointing out things that were wrong, because I thought you made some good points.
Okay.
But you said this could be the greatest comeback in golf history. Ben Hogan got hit by a bus.
I said in my lifetime. It was in my lifetime. I said my lifetime, though. I wasn't alive for Ben Hogan. Now, the Ben Hogan one is
good point.
Ben Hogan's number 1 ever of all time. I mean, what did he break his back in half or something? It was awful.
Yeah. They thought he was going to die and forget ever even walking again. And after the crash is when he had his greatest year, when he won all 3 majors he played in 53, and couldn't win the PGA because it played at the same time as the British. It was
is that true?
How was I supposed to win the Grand Slam?
Wow. It's amazing that hasn't been a bad golf movie yet, with like Matt Damon with a terrible swing as Ben Hogan coming back from the car crash. You thought that would have happened.
Wasn't it Follow the Sun, Glenn Ford?
Oh, you're going way back. I'm saying modern, because they did the greatest game ever played.
My modern starts about 1958.
So do you think – I made the case that I think, I'm only 40. This is just the actual comeback itself is the most fascinating of my lifetime. Like, I can't, as a sports fan, I can't wait to see how this plays out. How do you think this plays out next 4 weeks after he comes back?
To me, the Ali comeback was much more poignant.
Right.
It meant more to the country in that he was coming back from conscientious objection, which was, that set this country on its ear. This is just a guy who couldn't keep it in his pants.
I'm talking as a total.
There's a lot of poetry in it, No,
but I'm talking as just a guy trying to reclaim what he once was, and all the obstacles in his way. With Ali, it was a question of, will they give him his career back? They gave it back to him, and he became Ali again. With Tiger, he's going to get his career back, but I have no idea how it's going to play out. I don't think anybody was like, wow, I have no idea if Ali is going to be good again.
I agree. I think it's incredibly fascinating. Can you imagine if Babe Ruth at his peak or Willie Mays at his peak just suddenly disappeared for 3 months. I mean, we had no idea. To this day, we're not quite sure where he was. And the guy just disappears. I mean, I'm saying, looking back on this in 50 years, this is going to blow people away. Wait a minute. Are you saying the most famous athlete in the world? It turns out they found out in 1 week that he had 14 of different liaisons going. Then he disappeared. Then he came back and tried to keep playing golf, and he was able to, because I think the end of the story will be he's going to be as good as ever. I think it's going to take a couple of years, but he's still going to pass Nicklaus. I still think he will go down as the greatest golfer ever. But now is this incredible passage on his Wikipedia bio that's just going to make people's eyes bulge.
And what about the irony? I don't think enough's been made of this. This was a guy that nobody could really figure out anything interesting to write about for 12 years. And it was like, this guy just cranks it out. He wins. I wrote a column once called, the headline was Tiger, what else can you say? And he went from that to this.
I never felt that way. I knew he was interesting because he before, when I knew him at Stanford and that first year in the pros, he was funny. He always had a dirty joke. He liked to, say things about girls in the crowd. And so, he was, and we heard crazy stories about him in Vegas and having the top floor of the MGM because his buddy ran it, and crazy stories which we could never prove. So I never thought this guy's boring. I just thought I'd never come across an athlete who absolutely refuses to let you in. And looking back on it, and I said it at the time, I think it's a mistake because you need some transparency in your life, just so the paparazzi don't follow you all over hell. It's okay to let a reporter come to your house and kind of snoop around a little, because what Tiger did was set himself up as some sort of god who descended from Olympus and had no faults. And I've been in this long enough to know that, okay, everybody's flawed, and when his flaws hit, it's going to look worse. Only that turned out to be 500 times worse as a guy who was clearly, like in that Davy Brown celebrity index thing, I think he was 3 or 4 behind Obama. And now he's like 122nd. I think he's down there by that, who's the little guy from Jackass, the little guy?
Oh, no. Weeman?
Little man.
Oh,
he's
no.
Down there.
Oh, my God.
He's down there with Denise Richards and stuff. So I don't know. I don't know if they ever keep stats on it. That sounds like something you would know. But that's got to be the greatest free fall ever.
Well, they had the poll on ESPN.com yesterday. That's ESPN ABC poll they do every year. And, in 2000, Tiger had, basically an 88% approval rating for people out of the 1,000 respondents they've done that liked him. In 2005, it was 85%. And last week, it was 39%. So it split more than in half. And, I think he's, as soon as he starts playing golf again and it's fun to watch, he's going to win all the guys back. But I wonder about the women. Women are different with this stuff. I guess,
I got my buddy, after the speech, he called his wife or something. He said, I think that's pretty good. I think she's going to forgive him. I forgive him. She's like, are you kidding?
Right.
Every time anything comes up, she's going to drag out what she learned about the text messaging, the phone calls, the girls. We got a new book that's supposedly coming out from a playmate that he allegedly had an affair with. You don't think she's going to read that? He will carry that cross if he tries, if he's even able to hang on this long. He will carry that cross for 40 years.
And there's another thing that I should have mentioned in my column that somebody pointed out to me, a friend of mine. I talked about how he's going to have to deal now with paparazzi basically hounding him wherever he goes. Hey, he's probably equipped to deal with that to some degree, but the person that's really going to be affected is his wife, because now she's become somebody that every time she goes to a playground, there's going to be 10 paparazzi people there or coming out of a restaurant, and that's her life now, and he did that to her. So how does she react to that? That's a whole other element.
You're right. That's a great point. It's kind of unforgivable.
Yeah, it's
just wrecked her life.
That's another variable that is you got to add to this whole thing. So,
but that's why it's the odds are 10 to 1 that he can say that she's got to divorce him because he ruined her life now. I mean, but here's my thing. I've always said this about paparazzi. Don't hide. Hide less. Come out. Do shots all the time. Wave. I'm here. I'm here. Yeah, here's. Because if pictures are out, if it's easy to get a picture of you, if you're on all the time on this show and that show, and it's easy, then they got no market to sell it, and they go somewhere else.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know. It's sad. I think I've written 3 Tiger columns since November, and I'm sure you've written at least 2, right?
No,
or at least 2
more than that. Yeah, you're right. I mean,
you've done some video segments
and this and that and radio.
Yeah.
Like become a cottage industry. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I got some people are saying like, "Oh my God, another Tiger thing!" Like beating this story into the ground. It's like I think this is the biggest story of the last 10 years. Like I don't. This to me, this is the most fascinating sports story right now, other than where LeBron's going. You know, I think those are the top 2.
I heard you say it was the biggest sports story of the last 10 years. And, I mean, I know a lot of people think that, but I just refuse. Maybe I'm just Pollyannish, but, I mean, Lance Armstrong got out of a cancer bed in this decade and won 7 straight tours when they Tour de France, when they thought he was going to die. I mean, Tom Brady, how many great sports. We did a whole thing on how great this decade's been in terms of sports. And for this, a guy that can't keep in his pants to be the greatest sports story in the last 10 years, I mean,
well, there's a difference between,
but that makes it kind of a crappy decade, right?
That's a difference between greatest sports story and biggest, isn't there?
Yeah.
Greatest, I would agree. I think Lance Armstrong's got to be up there. I think, I got to say, I think the Saints winning the Super Bowl.
Decade was incredible. What?
Saints winning the Super Bowl. It's got to be up there.
What about Tiger Woods in 2000? At one point, on his coffee table at his mom's house, he got every major championship, and he didn't just win them. He took an elephant gun to a mosquito. He won the Pebble Beach U.S. Open by 15 shots.
Right.
The greatest golf performance in history, and maybe the greatest sporting performance in history. He won St. Andrews by 12. He fought off Bob May. There's always a Bob May in somebody's, great dream, and he beat back Bob May.
Right.
He just had this incredible, terrific year, and now people kind of forget. To me, that or Lance was the greatest story of the 2000s. But I know what you mean. 9 out of 10 people are going to agree with you.
Well, I think my favorite and the coolest, I think, that happened in that decade was when the Yankees won those 2 games after 9/11 in the World Series, Game 4 and Game 5. Like, to me, that I would even put that, I'm a Red Sox fan, so obviously, personally, the Red Sox winning the 2004 World Series was the greatest for me. But I just think where the city was at that point in time and the drama of those games and just the fact that New York just didn't want to lose those games. And
you're right.
I don't know. I just can't forget
those
that.
Games played out. But what about Federer, Nadal, Wimbledon? That was freaking and crazy. It was a great decade for sports, and I just hate for this to be the coffee stain right on the Mona Lisa that's sitting right above our fireplace.
Well, unfortunately, I think it is. That's the way it's going to go. It's too bad because you're not going to have a bigger athlete from that decade than Tiger, and it's the biggest downfall I think we've seen. Even Kobe was able to emerge relatively unscathed after a couple of years from, it's not even mentioned anymore.
Kobe looks like a traffic ticket now.
Yeah, it really does. Anyway, all right, Rick Reilly. So what are you working on? Anything you want to plug?
All I do is work. Let's see. What do I want to plug? I'm starting this 90-second essay on SportsCenter. Going to happen in the spring. Trying to figure out what to call it. Got any ideas?
I mean, I almost feel like you can't do Life of Reilly anymore. You need a new title.
Definitely. And it's going to be all me. It's like a one-man crew. I'm doing it with a flip camera and Skype.
Really?
Yeah. So I was almost going to call it Crewless as a play on Clueless, but I'd probably bite me in the ass.
What was your favorite homecoming that you did? What was the one that you thought turned out the best?
Josh Hamilton gets up there and in front of everyone who's ever cared about him, talks about how he slept in the floor of crack dens, stole his wife's wedding ring and hawked it for crack. Stole money from his parents, used up every friend he had, and had nowhere to go, and thought he might as well die. I mean, even I was starting to get like teary-eyed. As his kids and wife and parents are standing right in front of us, and he was just as open as a brand new 7-Eleven. There was nothing you couldn't ask this guy, and he just was incredibly honest. And then, that thing happened with the bar in Phoenix and everything, and it's like, yeah, he relapsed, but everybody's going to have a relapse anyway. After meeting him and knowing his story, I'm a big supporter. I hope he makes it.
Cool. All right. Thanks for being the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Talk to you soon, Rick Reilly. Thank you.
Okay, I need one of these lines.
Yeah, you need one of them. We'll work on it.
Thanks, man.
So I get the sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Podcenter at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.
To thank you for making Subway footlongs famous. Now enjoy any regular footlong as a $5 footlong. That's right, any, including your favorites like the savory chicken, bacon, and ranch. Any Subway regular footlong is just $5. Hurry in.